Welcome back to Rules of Engagement. We're about to start a section about how to control the concave positions when you engage. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys to please submit the replays you play at home if you want them on the show on Thursday's episode to MajorLeagueGaming.com/replays, and also, of course, tweet at me any questions you have at ISAxLab, and hopefully there'll be ones I pick to answer at the next segment 4 at the end of the show. But let's talk about the 3 things that are important to understand how to control the concaves in army positioning battles. So the first thing is going to be knowing how to improve a location you fight at. You know, you can't always pick the location. Sometimes you have to attack, or you're stuck in a weird spot. So knowing techniques to basically make a position better for you is very important. Then we're going to talk about improvising on the spot. If you're kind of all of a sudden a battle happens, not quite when you're prepared, how to improvise to make a really, really quick concave. And then we're going to talk about if you have a good position, you have a great defensive spot or a great spot on the offense, how to maintain that position and not get drawn out of that spot. So let's jump into the game of Stork versus Oz. Of course, Stork, one of my favorite players of all time. He was my Broodor hero, if I do say so. Well, actually, I think I quit playing but when he started. But when I followed Broodor later in my career, of course, he became my hero with his captivating tactical play. But enough talking about Stork. Let's talk about controlling concaves. So Stork is here in the game. He has a slight advantage. He caught a couple of Blinkstalkers off guard. But if we look at income, it's almost dead even. If you look at army, he is actually not even very much ahead. He's 200 down in gas, and then 350 up in minerals. So actually, it's almost an even income, or almost an even game. He's slightly ahead in supply, but that's also because he has cheaper units, right? He's very Zealot heavy versus Stalker heavy. So it's kind of like if a Zerg has a ton of roaches, doesn't mean they're necessarily heavy because they have more food. So he's on the attack here. He feels he can do damage, and attacking up a ramp is obviously a poor position because his units can occupy this space, and his opponents can occupy this space and this space, and have about twice as many units in the battle. Oops. Didn't mean to have it quite that fast on the fast forward there. Sorry, guys. I want to talk about a couple things he does as he engages this battle. So he has Observer. He sees what's going on. He says, okay, I think I can make this push happen. It's not an ideal location, but one thing I'll do to improve it is bringing this Warp Prism, right? So he says, okay, I only have a few guys fighting. The force fields were very good on Oz's part. Actually good on both players' parts, but Oz has such a stronger concave available to him that it's not looking great for Stork. But one thing Stork does here is says, okay, I'll make my concave better by doing this massive, or not massive, the Zealot Warpin, of course. I mean, this is relatively early in the game, so not a massive Warpin, but the Zealot Warpin will also make him have an effectively equal concave to his opponent. Unfortunately for him, Oz responds to this by blinking in, snagging this Warp Prism, canceling that Warpin, and now he has to retreat, and of course he's taking a few losses as well that he didn't want to take. So that didn't work out very well, but the idea of using the Warp Prism to improve your position is what's really, really important there. So the next thing we're going to talk about is basically how to improvise on the spot. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. This game gets kind of, not too much interesting happens for the next few minutes. Oz tries to do some Blinkstalker harass here. Does a little bit of damage. Of course, Stork eventually defends it. Both players kind of just hang around. And then all of a sudden, Stork says, you know what? I think it's time to move out because my opponent, I don't know if he knows about this. Maybe he's guessing. He's probably guessing his opponent has a third, or maybe just feels, okay, I've been defensive too long. My opponent's probably gained some macro advantage. It's time to start moving out. So he's going to try to move out. First, he's going to just, clear his own little third here, although it never actually kills his pylon. It's a little bit of a mistake there. But as he's moving out to basically push out across the map, one thing we look from Stork's point of view is all of a sudden he says, oh no, my opponent's earlier than I thought I would meet them. I thought I wouldn't meet him until on top of this ramp. He's actually coming down to attack me. So right now, Stork has to improvise a position. So you can see he's moving Zealots over here. And you can say, hey, wait a minute. If Stork charges up this ramp, those Zealots are still not going to be great. I mean, maybe he can swing them all the way around. But the idea here is that if he spreads these units, these Zealots out over here, and then maybe grabs some more and spreads them out over here, if Oz continues down the ramp, Stork will have a great angle attack on him. So that's basically improvising a great position. And of course, what's going to happen, he actually was able to catch Oz a little bit off guard here, and he actually gets the better spot just because of a better job improvising a position than his opponent Oz. And then he's going to follow it up. Of course, he already got the one Colossi kill, so keep pushing through, get a nice little advantage here. And from here on out, he has a nice edge. We're going to talk about a couple of things he does to keep that edge. So the next thing he does is he's going to basically follow up this attack. He has got a much stronger army now, so we can go ahead and knock out Oz's third. Of course, that doesn't mean he necessarily wins the game, because his third, of course, is just started. So it's still relatively equal in economy. But we're going to talk about how to maintain a position. So right here, he starts to charge up this ramp right here. And then he takes a step back, takes a breath, and says, you know what? Why am I charging up this ramp? It's going to be a poor position. And, of course, I know my opponent, I just killed his third. I'm going to be ahead. Why risk it on a poor attack? So let's just pull the Zealots back. They're going to hang back. And the Colossi will use their superior range to pick at Oz's stuff. And now, all of a sudden, instead of him charging up here and being hit, you know, with units from every angle, if Oz wants to protect this, Oz has to charge down. And then the Colossi, of course, they would back up. And then all of a sudden, Oz would be stuck on this ramp against this many Colossi layers all shooting at him. So he's maintaining a position by basically keeping all of his guys off the ramp except for the ones that can retreat. And as soon as he kills this warp gate, he's like, you know what? Now's the time when there's no reason for me to stay here. I'll back up and get an even better position, closer to my rally point, where I can get an even greater conquer. So he's going to, you know, Oz tries to chase the lobby, says, you know, give me a little bit of breathing space. Don't charge up this ramp too hastily or I will punish you. The next thing he's going to do over here is he's just going to back up here, and he's going to set up a great defensive position. So this is where it's very important. If you're the defender and you know all you have to do is defend, you want to prepare a concave when defending. So first he held the position to avoid running up a ramp, and then when he's on the defense, he prepared a concave. So now if his opponent comes in here, of course he's got a great spread. His opponent has to go through a couple of these chokes. And actually, let's just bring up a map and talk about how great... Oops. There we go. How great this defensive position is. So we're going to take a look at where Stork's units are going to be positioned. Let's say Oz is yellow. We'll talk about the different offensive options Oz has. So Oz, of course, his army is going to be right here, right? And he can either go down here and head to these rocks, right? Or he could basically head through this area, or he could head through this area. He's basically got 3 different attack options there. Now we're going to bring it down to Stork. We're going to use him for red. Of course, red is the good guy Stork's color. And right now, his army is basically set up something like this. Not the best artiste, but... so, of course, he can provide firepower, you know, against either of these chokes, concentrating this way. If his opponent goes through that angle, or if his opponent goes through the other angle, he can come in like this, and he'll have another superior concave arc no matter which of those choices the opponent goes for. And, oops, hit the wrong button there. The other option he can do is, let me bring it over to the eraser just to clear up this board a tiny bit. The other option is if the opponent goes to the rock, so we're going to clear out this area just a little bit. And then if his opponent goes to the rocks, what he can do is he can grab some of these units, right? And he's going to swing these guys around up here. And he's going to make a little bit of defensive formation here. And then the other units, oops, this army can swing around here and make another little group here. And all of a sudden, he's got an effect of a great surround on Oz's army. So either way, his defensive setup is pretty much perfect. It's a really, really strong setup. So that's how you prepare a great defensive setup. You make sure no matter what angle they come from, you're always going to have the superior concave. So the last thing we're going to talk about is, again, we're going to go back to how you can improvise things. Is Oz, of course, is going to realize that this is an unassailable position. So as we fast forward just a little bit through this game, what Oz does, because he realizes he can't really launch an attack on Stork, he's going to try to drag Stork out of this perfect defensive position, right? This is such a strong position. He's like, I can't attack it. I'm going to drop in Stork's main, and now Stork has to give up this position, right? And Stork says, you know what? I don't want to give up this position, but I'm kind of dying here in the main. I mean, I may eventually stabilize, but if I don't, so I'm going to attack. I know you've dragged 2 Archons and some Zealots out of your army. Now is the time to attack. I'm going to improvise. Maybe not an ideal position, but an ideal timing. And of course, he's going to just come through here and eventually, you know, taking some damage here, but absolutely crushing through Oz's army here, getting the GG. A great, you know, decision there when a lot of people say, I'm on defense. Yeah, but you got to improvise. If you're on defense and your opponent kind of puts you in a position where, in order to maintain that defense, you have to get in a poor defensive position, sometimes it's better to abandon defense and go on the attack, and that's what Stork did there at just the right time. So let's recap a little bit about the 3 important parts about controlling the concave positioning. The first part is going to be, if you find a location, always try to improve it. The Warp Prism was a great idea of how to improve a location, kind of get a little extra flanking angle. Of course, Zerg can do this with drop play, with Nidus, with infested Terrans. Terrans can, well, they can get siege shanks, you don't have to worry about that. Next part is going to be improvising on the spot. So if you're in a battle, all of a sudden just drag a couple guys and try to get your concave. Or, of course, if your opponent's going to make you go out of position to defend, sometimes it's better to attack. The last part, we talk about how to maintain a great position. Basically, it takes a lot of thought. So it's not something you can do on the fly so much until you get a lot more experience. What you have to do is, on every map and every matchup, think of the great positions to defend and have these ideas in your head of where to set up your forces if you want to be in a defensive posture. So we're going to take a quick break, then we're going on to the question and answer section, of course. This is where I answer all the questions you back at home ask me. We tweet them at me at ISAxlev. I answer them. We'll be right back with that in just a few minutes.